What is up, people of the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Welcome to my recap, review, and breakdown of She-Hulk Episode 1. So Tatiana Maslany's She-Hulk has been a bit of a topic of conversation for a while, you know, with regards to, does the CGI look really that good in trailers? Or, Daredevil's going to be in it. Oh, but it's a comedic series. So is that meaning that it's all going to be MCU ha-has and they're going to change Daredevil up? So, what do I really think about this? I'm going to give you my thoughts, some which may surprise you, some maybe you expected. And let me just say right off the bat, I did enjoy myself. And one thing I do want to say as well is that I really, really like Tatiana Maslany. I've watched her way back. Well, it's not way back. It's not like it was 20 years ago, but in Orphan Black, that's when I first saw her. I'm betting like a lot of you did. And she is easily my favorite thing already. And that happened within the first few minutes. Maybe I'm a bit biased there because I like her as an actor. But I'm going to save my kind of full overview review of the episode till the end. Let's recap this now and go through it. I would greatly appreciate you showing your support for the channel and this video by just leaving a like. But let's start right at the beginning. And that was with Jennifer talking about the responsibility of those with power, having an obligation to refrain from the misuse of that power, or maybe a duty of protecting those without it, which I think is the very line that opened up this episode is going to be the very theme and core, if you will, the duality that Jennifer's going to have to come to terms with, and, which was kind of echoed throughout a lot of this first episode. I'm not a superhero. More on that, though, a little bit later, but this was really just a little bit of a preparation for the closing argument we see at the end of the episode, and that's when she breaks the fourth wall and speaks to us about, okay, I guess you're not going to be able to enjoy this fun lawyer show until you all know about her being a Hulk, and that's when we saw a little flashback to the origin of which has been changed, but it's perfectly suited into what I always say. Adaptations aren't copy and paste. When you bring something from the source material, sure, some things more than others will be adapted, so very much so, in fact, but at the same time there is innovation. So this one was just a lot more kind of streamlined. We see Bruce in the car with Jennifer. They're on a bit of a road trip. What he said next is something that I've actually been wondering about for some time, because this is when he acknowledges that his arm started to heal. Nobody thought that it was possible, and it's all because he made this little device that keeps him in the human form. Even though later on he does get fully healed with regards to Jennifer's blood, but more on that in a minute. I was talking about this with a friend, and I felt like he made kind of a good point. I do like the idea of Bruce keeping some kind of scar from the fact that he used the gauntlet, for example, the Infinity Gauntlet. Now that it's kind of completely gone, it's not that it's bad. I mean, it's cool even, but it's just, I'm not saying his whole arm should have been fried or anything like that, but I feel like some kind of scar or like some kind of lightning bolt, even if the rest of his skin was clear, would have been like a constant reminder of the crap that he's been through. So to kind of just get rid of like the snap that he did, I'm not shitting on this by any means. It's just I feel like it kind of lessens, if you will, the impact that it had on Hulk, Bruce Banner. I mean, the impact on Tony was that he died. And yes, I know that's because he's human. Obviously, Hulk can take in a lot of radiation, but it's just, what I'm saying is a little bit more artistic, if you will, to just leave something there. But that is, just a little bit of feedback from me. One thing that gets brought up in conversation that was a bit of an echo throughout this episode was Steve Rogers' history with regards to Jennifer really thinking that he's been a virgin his whole life, but more on that with regards to the post-credit scene a little bit later. And this is when a ship comes down right in front of them, and so the car goes off-road. Jennifer gets out instead of kind of getting shot up and needing a blood transfusion. In this version, it was just like, avoid my blood, and then it just basically dips into her arm, and then she freaking hulks out. Initially, though, when I saw that vertical cut, I thought they were going to go along the route of her trying to save Bruce, but she would bleed out, because that kind of vertical line there is very, very, very bad. So I thought they were going to still do the blood transfusion in the classical way, with her maybe bleeding out and then sewing it up and she needed blood. But no, it was just kind of straight to the point. I get why they did it. It was quite simple, but at the same time, it got us to where we were going quite quickly. These episodes are quite short. Obviously, a lot of this has homages to the past, like the car crash, or just hulking out and then waking up like the other side and then being in front of the bar. And we have some guy guys kind of trying it on with her, so to speak. But because of their persistence, if you will, she started to get a bit panicked or fearful, I guess, of the outcome. So that kind of adrenaline, hulked her out. But this is when she wakes up in Mexico, and we have Bruce's little pad out there, and Tony actually helped build that. And we even have like a little Iron Man helmet in the background there, or at least some kind of battle damaged one, perhaps from one of the droids of previous years. I also appreciate the Led Zeppelin shirt that was left there for her. We even had Bruce wearing a Nirvana Nevermind shirt, which is, big score, big tick in my book. I think that moved it up by 5 points. Just joking. And so we have Smart Hulk down in the basement. We get a few explanations here, some of which I'm like, yeah, but I mean, the thing about Marvel sometimes, or, projects within the MCU, they kind of throw things at you that they put off as if it's like an actual statement that can have no refuting to it, so to speak. Yet, if you kind of do ask a question, it's more of the thing of don't ask questions. And the way they deliver it is that, as I said, there is no other way around it. We learn this is where Bruce spent most of the blip fixing himself and integrating the Hulk and Banner identities. I did find the comedy actually pleasantly surprising. I mean, not everything landed, but if you guys have watched me for quite a long time now, a lot of Marvel humor, there is a lot I enjoy, like in Guardians and things like that, but I feel like sometimes they don't always know in certain films, like in No Way Home, for example. As much as I enjoy that movie, it goes kind of from tone to tone to tone to tone of like, taking itself seriously, goofy, seriously, goofy, seriously. But with this, when they kind of own it, I'm a lot more on board. So in this moment, especially with Tatiana, I feel like she was great. She hit a lot better for me with regards to humor, even over Mark Ruffalo. I don't know. I feel like this Hulk isn't always it for me as much as I love Mark Ruffalo. He also destroys the samples of her blood that he helped use to help heal his arm and whatnot, because just in case, it got into anyone else in the world, even if there's 1 millionth of a chance or whatever, it would Hulk them out, and we can't have that happening. But back to what I was saying like a couple of minutes ago with regards to some of the other stuff. This is where we have Jennifer really trying to say to Bruce, and put me back to normal, get me back to normal, give me that little device thingy that kept you as Bruce. And then that's when he says like that device was a prototype, it was calibrated specifically to me. And it's like, well, okay. She says the next reasonable thing, well, make me one, calibrate it to me. And he's just like, I can't. And the writers do kind of expand on this, but also try and change the subject at the same time through saying, I've been, struggling with this for years. The best I could do was merge my two halves. So we didn't really get an excuse or an answer as to why he couldn't create an inhibitor for her as well to constantly keep her in human form like she asks. And he says that the best thing he's managed to do was to merge the two halves in Smart Hulk. But I kind of disagree with that, because the best thing he did was when they were on the road trip, he had the inhibitor on and he was in human form. Sure, like he can take it off whenever he wants and he can become like Hulk, if you will, or like merge or whatever. But, I just feel like a little bit of this wasn't so layered very well. There's still no, I still keep thinking in my head, well, yeah, sure, it may take some time, but you could literally make an inhibitor for her, calibrate it to her, and he's just like, I can't. Why? With regards to the whole merging the two halves thing, he even says, give it some time in a lab, we could possibly do the same for you. And it's just like, well, why not give it some time, make an inhibitor, and give her what she wants? I know that would mean, well, no story, but do you see what I mean? This kind of highlights a lot of the things with Marvel for me sometimes. It's what I was saying earlier. It's like, hey, answer, which really doesn't answer it, but take it and don't ask questions. One thing that happened in this conversation down in the basement, they addressed the spaceship. She's like, wait, did we just crash into a spaceship? And Hulk was just like, oh yeah, that was a Sakaaran Class 8 courier craft. He knows all about ship designs like this because obviously he was on Sakaar for quite a while, go back to Thor Ragnarok. Now, the interesting thing about this is that this could very well be setting up the next story for Bruce Banner in the MCU. Now, I do expect threads to be kept up throughout the series, or maybe you could argue this could be a backdoor thing, maybe in the finale as a post-credit scene for the next thing with regards to exactly what that courier in that Sakaaran spaceship wanted to tell Bruce Banner. It's like, what did he get up to during his time on Sakaar when he was Hulk? He was there for quite a while, so definitely they're trying to tell you something else is going on here. They could adapt some things from the comics and, the source material, but for now they're like, okay, we're gonna put a pin in that because it's like, oh, there's always weird stuff that finds you when you're a Hulk. And so this is where it's like, you're gonna have to change the way you live your life now, avoid stressful situations, everything like that. And this is where we enter the part of the episode that was, kind of redundant if I'm going to look at it very critically, and we're going to get into why, but there's also a charm to it. I think this is just kind of what you need to get used to sometimes with the substance of MCU live action shows, Disney Plus shows, and, even MCU movies. Not all the time, I do want to stress that. And what I mean by the charm of it is that I did enjoy this at the same time. Again, maybe I'm biased here with the actor, but I did feel like, this is something. I think this is the thing. This is a show that you can't really take too seriously. And some of you might be like, well, of course, Boba, because, it's a comedic show. It's meant to be a comedy. But I know that is what it is. But also it is set within the world of the MCU and their characters. So, certain decisions I am looking out for are things that are made or put there for expense of the character through the sacrifice for that of comedy would be an iffy thing to me. But that didn't happen so much this episode. What I'm on about is with all this training and all the funny things we got to see, again, I really did have quite a laugh and a smile when I saw these little funny moments happen with Jennifer, in her Hulk mode, the air horn or throwing the boulders, her taking the piss, saying like, man, and things like that. It is funny to me. The CGI, I would say that it looks best in the daylight scenes. Like there was this one shot when they're on the top of the rock where I thought it looked really clean, but there are, of course, times where it did struggle a bit. I'm not going to be too harsh on that because it is what it is. You can see it with your eyes. There's also reports coming out that they kept getting told that they had to cut shots that, were, even down to the point of like, is there any She-Hulk scenes that we can just make Jennifer like keep taking it out? So, and then there's all the stuff with the Marvel VFX being overworked and things like that. So it's not perfect. Far from perfect even, but there are some shots where I actually was pleasantly surprised. But this is when Jennifer really wants to leave, and this is when Hulk was obviously, and already has been at this point, heavily stressing, like, there's a target on everyone's back when you're a Hulk, you're a superhero, you've got to control your anger, but this is where it kind of really sums it up. And, there is a bit of, read between the lines stuff going on here at the same time with how she says that she can control her anger very well. She does it all the time, whether she's catcalled in the street, to this, to that, the other. But the thing is, this is kind of the thing that kind of takes a little bit of substance away from it, and what I meant by the redundancy earlier. Other than it just being, straight up like popcorn, like surface level enjoyment, I wouldn't say that was like, strip back the layer, substance here, because she was already kind of perfect at everything. There wasn't really, sure, she maybe learned a couple of things, but she aced it, everything, and there's no real flaws with her as this is unfolding. Like, quite literally, like everything, she was just, it's like everything's on a platter. It's like starting a game. Instead of starting it at level 1, you've already started in New Game Plus mode. Like, you've completed the game and you've got all your gear with you. She didn't need to go through a lot of the stuff. And I get, in one way, why they wanted to do that. And what I'm saying as well at the same time is they probably want to concentrate on, okay, let's get over the Hulk stuff straight away. So she already knows how to do certain things, and she's kind of relatively controlled. But she's got to struggle in this department. Do I want to do this with being a lawyer? Do I want to do that? And she'll probably achieve a decent duality there. But at the same time, even if that is the course of action, which I'm pretty sure we all are guessing that it will be with regards to her legal life and her kind of heroic side, there's not much else there. Sometimes seeing a character's growth is pretty cool, whether they're like being impatient. Maybe she can control that anger pretty well, but like we see her start off a certain way, and granted, some people then would have called it this was really rushed. But, seeing certain flaws or character attributes that, you're inclined to really like the character, but at the same time, they do have a few pitfalls. For example, Morpheus, this is such a random comparison, in The Sandman, is a very big douchebag at times. But there's still lots of likability there, but the growth as a person and a character is such a compelling thing. But here, it's just like, again, I know it's a comedy, but it just feels like that is all there is to it, with a very likable main lead in the show, in that of Tatiana. And I mean that with like the utmost respect as well. It's just, I wish there was something more substancy there with regards to all of the stuff that we did see with the training and whatnot. And then ultimately her just being able to do everything, and if anything, better than the Hulk. And, there's even that moment with, as much as I found it funny, it's like, Hulk got tossed aside. She even got out the car concerned, but then it just turns into a fight. I know she said enough dialectical behavioral BS, but it's like, it still felt like, a fight that came out of nowhere for the sake of, haha, look at what's going on. You know, one minute she's concerned, and then the next, does she have control of her anger? Because he didn't really say anything. I mean, I know he's being, you could argue, a bit sarcastic, but I don't know. This may be too nitpicky for some, but then like beating the living crap out of each other, even though they know each other are likely going to be fine, it's just, it felt a little bit forced again. So as much as on the surface I can enjoy this stuff, from the critical perspective, I keep thinking like there's it's not really like much there going on. Either way though, this all resolves, and he says, you know, if you want to go back to your lawyer life kind of thing, I respect that. And that's when she says he doesn't mean that, and she breaks the fourth wall. So, you know, you have to assume this is canonically happening, and like he hears that, he's probably like wondering who you're talking to. Again, this may be too nitpicky for some, but I'm just thinking like with your Hulk abilities, you would have thought if you are talking to us or like breaking this fourth wall, you would want to tell your cousin about that. So I'm kind of wondering why. I know realistically they don't want to do that because it's, you know, the little secret between the viewers and like breaking the fourth wall thing with Jennifer, but it's hard to believe. You know, she'll be like, hey, I can kind of like do this thing, this Hulk ability that is unique to me, and what is with that? I enjoy it because I love that we have Tatiana's Jennifer just talking to us every now and again, and it is funny and it's true to the comics, but I'm also wondering, like, realistically, wouldn't you ask about that? Either way, though, at the end of the episode now, we have her in court, you know, in her closing argument. But that's when Titania comes in and starts wrecking stuff. And this was basically what we're probably going to see in the series. Again, the focus is going to be about her dealing with the duality of being a Hulk, also whilst helping people in other ways, and that is the legal ways. The fight was like a bit, you know, and again, here there's absolutely no difficulties. I know she's a Hulk, but at the same time, this person, the Titania, does seem formidable. Like, she burst through the freaking wall, for crying out loud. So again, it's just the ease of everything for Jennifer here. I'm not saying it should have been like a complex Daredevil versus whoever fight. I'm just saying it could have been something more. And also, I was just thinking when, you know, Titania was on the floor, sure, she just got punched by She-Hulk, but like those court guards running over with the cuffs and whatnot, I thought, like, if she slightly even comes to, that you can just go bing. But again, a bit nitpicky there, but there is something on the surface, regardless to all of this, where we get back into a Jennifer form. She's like, right, I'm ready to give my closing argument now, which is very charming. You know, again, as I always say, there's always a subjective enjoyment to these things, and then kind of like as objective as can be critical look at these things. So subjectively, I was enjoying myself quite a lot, but with regards to this kind of critical conclusion I take from the episode, it wasn't that great. It was kind of just like, you know, typical kind of Marvel thing that's being pumped out, but something that I, at the same time, really subjectively enjoyed. So I do want to say that this first episode still had like in terms of what I feel like for most people, and apparently for those who have had screeners, it gets better and better and better. It had a relatively decent start, albeit that it still isn't, you know, perfect. The post-credit scene, again, the shining thing for me is Tatiana. You know, when she was talking about Steve Rogers again, when they were drinking, Hulk did say that he did get laid in the 1943 USO show, and that's when she's just like, Captain America, fuck, you know. So I do appreciate all of that. That's the kind of like stuff that is a bit more up my street. Maybe you thought, okay, that humor was crap or whatever. It is. That's all subjective as well. A lot of people loved No Way Home's humor, for example. So all of that is, you know, dependent on what your experience is. But overall, I think I'm going to cut this review there. I did enjoy She-Hulk more than what I thought I was going to. I didn't really go into it with any expectations. It was just one of those things where I was like, okay, new Disney Plus show, got to check it out, review it for the channel, like the actors behind it, got to see where this goes. So I'm going to continue this on, obviously, and I'm looking forward. I actually will say I am looking forward to another installment. It's not perfect. There's lots of shows I like out there that don't have great writing or anything like that, but there's still other qualities that do redeem it in other ways. And I would say that is kind of what this show is in episode 1 for me. And we're gonna have to see where this journey goes on. So let me know your thoughts, of course, down in the comments below. What did you think of this episode? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Looking forward to read all your responses down in the comments. Also, any theories you have with regards to what we were talking about earlier with certain aspects, such as, you know, the Sakaaran spaceship, and we can probably see where that is going to go. But like this video if you did enjoy it, guys, and also it lets me know that you're enjoying the review of this series and you want to see more She-Hulk reviews, of course. Check out some of my other videos on the channel, of course. Do subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. And as always, links are in the description down below. Follow me on social media, Discord server, and all good things like that. But I'm going to get to editing this video now, so thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you fellow Hulks out there, or She-Hulks, in the next video. Goodbye.